In our world, work is at the forefront of our mind in many of our conversations because of the rapid changes in our world, things like artificial intelligence and supply chain issues and the lack of staffing. All these issues influence the conversations that we're having about work and the way we think about our own work. In the previous episode, we talked about how we view work, that work is actually not a bad thing, it's a gift from God. So what's happened is for many of us in our world, we view work as the problem itself, which is actually an ancient Near Eastern way of thinking about work. In the ancient Near East, they saw work as a punishment, that the gods punished man by creating them to offload their work on them. But the truth is, for us as human beings created in the image of God, work is a good thing. And when we view work as a curse, the problem that happens is we run away from it. We try to figure out how quickly can we offload that work, find new work, get away from it. Now there's an other temptation that is the opposite direction that I want to talk about with you today, and that's when we see work as our worth, we actually run towards it. And I don't mean run towards it in the sense of like to a healthy level. When we see work as our worth, we actually put everything of ourselves into that because we see our work at that point as our identity. It's our sense of worth, it's our sense of value, our sense of meaning. Then the challenge with that in our culture is that kind of perspective will actually be celebrated in the workplace. Your boss, your coworkers, your clients will love if you put 80 hours in during the week. Because for them, you might be giving everything and you are doing that because people are pleased with you, because people are praising you, because people are celebrating what you're doing. And for you, maybe that even validates the way you look at yourself. The problem is they may be celebrating a way that you are looking at yourself that is not actually the way God wants you to see yourself. In Genesis chapter 11, there's an interesting story. And it's interesting, a couple reasons. One, it's in close proximity to just the creation story itself. So in Genesis 1 and 2, work is seen as good. It's a part of God's good creation. In Genesis 3, we see sin enter into that story. And because of sin, there's damage to the way human beings experience work. In Genesis 11, there's a story that we see some technological advancements have an impact on the way work is done. And then we see a misplaced value that those workers have on their work. Here's what it says. In chapter 11, verse 2, as men moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth." Now it's important here, when it says they're going to use bricks instead of stones, that's a technological advancement. In our own work, there are technological advancements that happen that change the way we do our work. It changes our experience of the work. It changes what we can possibly even create. And so for them, the challenge is they've been given this technological advancements, and now they're going to use that to offer some spiritual value in how they see themselves. They've taken a good advancement that allows them to be more effective, more productive, and then that has also brought some damage into how they see themselves. It's similar for us. There are technological advancements in our own workplaces. We have a global economy now that didn't always exist, that you can buy and sell things, you can meet with people all across the world, across languages, across all kinds of barriers, and you have that access that bridges gaps that were previously not able to be bridged. You as a company, you can communicate with your clients and your customers on social media and have a more personal company because of what you can do on social media. You can stay connected with your friends all around the world. You can have access to information quicker than ever before. Yet at the same time, what we see is with these technological advancements, it's not all good. People have self-image issues because of the way they look at other people on the internet. People have struggles because their minds weren't meant to consume the amount of information we take in every single day. Anxiety levels are higher than ever before, and people are more isolated than before, in large part attached to technological advancements. And so what we see is with this technological advancements, the question is, what do we do with that? For those who are doing the work in Genesis 11, they are using that technological advancement, and it says they're using it actually to make a name for themselves. They're using that new technology so that they can go to their work and they can feel better about themselves. See, the choice we have in our work is we can either have a name given to us, or we can make a name for ourselves. We can see our work as the opportunity where, based on what we do and what other people think and our performance and all of those things, maybe the job we have or don't have, maybe even the way we parent our kids, all those we can say, based on that, I am making a name for myself. I am giving myself value and validity and worth and approval. Or we can start with the place of worth and ask ourselves, well, who am I based on what does God say to me? Who does Jesus say that I am? And when we start there, instead of finding our worth in our performance and how we do, we can actually take then with us our worth into the workplace. And I would argue that starting in that place will actually make you more valuable in the workplace. Because when you know who Jesus says you are, you can bring who Jesus says you are and what you have to offer into the unique places that God has called you. Now in Romans chapter 12, the Apostle Paul writes some words describing worship that I think apply, because our work is not meant to be worth, but it is meant to be worship. And he says, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy. In other words, knowing what God has done for you, who God says you are, and knowing his sacrifice for you, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. In other words, all that you know about who God says you are, give that all to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. And he says, don't conform any longer to the pattern of this world, meaning that this way of living and being is different than the rest of the world. The world might elevate you finding your worth in other things. This is a different way of thinking about your life as an act of worship. And then he says, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, and then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So for your work, I want you to think about those things. What in your own life needs to be transformed? I want to encourage you, ask Jesus. Jesus, what in my life needs to change? What about the way that I think about myself? What about the place that work holds in my life? What about the way I see my own identity or my value? What needs to shift? This is what confession is. It's asking God to reveal the things in your life that need to change. And then ask God to transform you, to change that about you so that you don't stay the same. And then it says that transformation happens with the renewing of your mind. And so ask God to renew your mind, to change the way you think, to change the way that you see things. Ask him, Jesus, who do you say that I am? Now, what I love about this idea of renewing your mind, it's actually beginning with your mind and the way you think that then will change how you respond in the places that you are doing your work, whether that be paid work or volunteer work or work because of your role and your station in your life. What's also cool is it also matches some of the things they're learning in neuroscience, that your prayer and meditative practices that use your mind and change the way you think, actually then also transform the way you feel and the way you see yourself. And then Paul says, in renewing your mind, then you'll be able to test and approve God's will. And I don't know about you, but as I do my work, that is often the question, what does God want for me? What does God want for me and what's next? What is best for me? What is best for my family? What is best for this organization? What is best for those people? And doing all of those things, we can ask the question and follow the lead in the wisdom of God in those places. And that is a spiritual act of worship for the people you are serving and loving.